Okay, I'm going to try this again. Obviously, the last time I tried to do this, it only recorded 10 out of the 30 minutes of recording I did, for whatever reason. So I'm starting it again. Tech Tools number 3. This is a little guide. I have both the desktop app for Excel open, and I've got the web app for it as well. If you don't have Microsoft Excel, if you don't have Microsoft Office at home, you can use the Outlook.com version of it, the one that we get through our Cortland SharePoint. That's just logging into my Red Dragon, and there's SharePoint in the upper left-hand corner. You click on it, and it takes you to this. So, blank document on both of these. Now, they're very similar, except that the desktop version is way better. Oh man, it's so much better. This is not too much different from, say, Google Sheets. It has most of the functionalities that has. The desktop version of Microsoft Excel, or the desktop version of any of these ones that do spreadsheets, has more functionality, has more functions, has more pre-programmed mathematics that will do stuff for you. Also has a better way of displaying stuff. It can be much nicer looking. But that's neither here nor there. Not everybody has this, so I gotta kind of do these in both. I'm gonna do more on the desktop version than the web app version, but I'm gonna kind of grade everything based off the web app's ability. So you might find it easier if you have Microsoft Excel at home, the full version of it. You might want to use this one because it comes out much better and you learn a lot better stuff from it. So the first thing we got to do is understand what there's going on here. Both of these have this tabulature, right? There's these columns, and they are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on until you run out of memory in your computer. And then there's also these rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. These rows also run on and on until you run out of memory in your computer. And at the confluence between two of them, you find cells, these little boxes. Now that's how Excel thinks. It's a bunch of boxes that you can put stuff into, and you can put a lot of stuff into each one of these. You can put like a novel's worth of text into one of these. And the point is that it's locating information in one spot, and that other places can look at that data in that cell and find what they want. It will do the math for you. You just have to know where the functions are. And there's some very basic functions we're going to use. You use them a lot. They're incredibly useful. Just minimum, maximum, average, sum. Really simple math stuffs. You will use it a lot in life because it's the way that you do your checkbook. It's the way that the bank calculates how much money you've got, which it takes out. It's going to do that. And so you can really lay out information very nicely. So the first thing I got to do is in these cells, these identified cells, I need to kind of put something there that lets me know what's going on. Just like simply putting a bunch of cells together, and putting a title in there, merging and centering some information so that I know when I open this up what the heck's going on. So first step is I'm going to grab a couple of cells in both of these. Like if I do this, I have the ability to take these cells and merge them together. Merge and center, merge across, merge cells, unmerge cells. These allow me to make these cells behave as one block, and that's just for text. It's not for numbers and stuff. It's not for doing formulas and doing math. It's just so that you can put information in there nicely and very easily see it. So merge, center, see it turns them into one block. Same thing on the other side. Styles. I'll put like a title there. Same thing can go over here. And then of course I'm going to grab the next row. As the instructions say, merge them, merge, apply maybe a heading 1 style to it. My name, class 111, this section, whatever section you are in, 601, 603, whatever, and the date. Now another thing I like to do, and this is something I learned as a teacher, because when I first started teaching, I taught at a corporate college, and this is the stuff I taught, is that I was teaching people who were, generally they were women, who were oftentimes grandmothers raising children, raising grandchildren, and they were working as secretaries, and they wanted to get just that much more education to get the paralegal status, which would grant them $10,000 more a year. Which, when you're only making $20,000, $10,000 more is a huge buff in your ability to live. A lot of times they said that their employers wanted this stuff, like they had to put a title at the top of an Excel spreadsheet. They didn't really know how to do that, so I taught them that. And then they also often had some kind of summarization, some way of communicating with the reader of the sheet, and they needed to put a bunch of text, because there had to be context for the information. It's not just numbers on a page, you need to know what's going on. So I like to take a block of cells here. I'm going to take rows 3, 4, 5, and columns up to E. I'm going to grab A3, this cell, and drag over to E5, this cell, on both of them. And I'm going to merge them, and I can put text in there. This is a good place to just talk about what it is that you're reading on this. I'm going to grab to there. I'm going to merge them, just merge. That's all. And then I'm going to use the wrap text function. Right there. It's over here. This under alignment, it's right there. Wrapping text. That way it doesn't run off the edge of the cell. If I don't wrap text, what happens is it then tries to run off the edge. And it gets cut off. So wrapping text allows it to fill in the space. If I don't wrap text, it gets cut off. You don't want that. Wrap some text. Right. Let's start getting into the part where it actually does math, the real mathy part of this. I have to put out numbers, because that's really what this is for. It's not for text, it's for numbers. Numbers are just the language of math. They're the representation of ideas, of relationships between stuff. So I'm going to put a bunch of numbers in here, but you're going to notice I have to put them in a block, in this certain tabular form. That's the point, because Excel thinks in these squares of information. So I'm going to lay out a bunch of numbers, starting at B7, and I'll go to, like, let's say D10. I'm going to fill all these right here with numbers, but I'm leaving some space at the beginning, a row at the beginning, or sorry, a column at the beginning, and a row at the top, because numbers are great, except if they don't have any context, that data aren't going to make any sense. We need context for them. I'm going to use the basic one. I almost always do this. It's like shoes. I don't know why. It's always a shoe shop. I always do a shoe shop. So this is the one I'm doing. I'm going to make the world's best shoe shop. Right, so here I've got some numbers. I got a few. It's now 12 numbers right now. I'm going to add another column below. So I have these numbers, they're laid out in this block, right? You can see them over there. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to paste the numbers. Without any context, I have no idea what they mean. Nothing. I got nothing. Right? I don't know what that value represents. So I've got to give it some context. And the way I do that is by having a header row and a header column. I gave some space here for that. Right? If you made a mistake and put these numbers up real close, like say you did this, like if you wrote them like that, you can see what I just did. When you have a selection, you can take your mouse, put the cursor right on the edge, on the line around. It'll give you a multi-directional arrow. You can grab that and move blocks of information. It doesn't have to be numbers. You can do it with anything. So I've got my stuff, and I need to put in some context. Right here, I'm going to leave this one blank. This one is a special spot, and it comes up more when we format a bunch of numbers and words into a table. It becomes a pivot point. But I'm going to fill in right here, what thing is that? What series of data am I talking about? And up here, I'm going to fill in some words, what category of data I'm going to talk about. So over here, let's say it's Nikes, Adidas, New Balance, Hush Puppies. Your cursor up to the column heading, putting it right between the two columns that you want to expand, and to the right side of the column you want to expand. And it gives you this bidirectional arrow. I can click and drag this, it'll widen column 1, and the words will snap up into it better. I got to put in the categories of data. I got my series. I need my categories. What category does each one of these fit into? I'm going to put in months. January, February, March, right? I'm also going to abbreviate those months because I'm lazy, but I'm lazy productive. Jan, Feb, Mar. Because I'm going to grab these word things, and I'm going to use that cursor spot right in the corner of a selection. It's a little black box or a little green box, and it's going to be turned into a plus sign, a black plus sign, and that's Phil. And Phil is my best friend. I love, well, we're doing Excel. Phil's my best friend because Phil does so much work for me. It does a lot of the calculations when I have a lot of things. As I said, I do your grade books in a spreadsheet. And by having them in a spreadsheet, it can automatically calculate things. It can do statements that can give me a letter grade based on your grade without me having to even look at the number. So I'm going to put in, I'm going to select this, I'm going to grab Phil, I'm going to drag it over, and you're going to see it does something so freaking amazing. What is it? April APR. There it is. Okay, now I've got my data. It's laying out in this very nice tabulature way, that nice square shape, because Excel needs you to write things in squares in order for it to do your calculations automatically. You can put it all over. You can scatter these everywhere and by hand put in a formula that looks in the different spots. But I don't want to do that because, again, I'm lazy, but I'm lazy productive. So I'm going to grab from that pivot point I was talking about down to the bottom piece of data. All right, I'm grabbing from here and dragging it there. I'm going to do the same thing over there. I'm going to grab from here, I'm going to drag to there. Then I'm going to format this area as a table. I'm going to do that. It's over there in the Format as Table button up there, Format as Table button up there. Allows me to take this information and make it filterable, sortable. Format as Table. And please choose a colory one that's nice and pretty, because it does actually make the information a lot easier to read. When I click Format as Table, once I've had a selection, it'll say, where's the data for your table? Because you click Format as Table before you click on that, but I like to select it first. Right, okay, it's saying from A6 to E10. That's what that means. The dollar signs in that selection mean that it is an absolute cell reference. So if I move these numbers out of here, if I grab part of this and move it, it won't move the table. The table will stay in that spot. Does my table have headers? Yes, it does. The top row are headers that are telling you what the things underneath it means. I'm going to click OK. Boom. Same thing over here. Go from that pivot point, the bottom piece of data, Format as Table. We'll go nice and green with this one. How about that? Your table is in this location, A6 to E10, yep. So A6 to E10. And yes, the top row are headers. They have a value, they have meaning. Okay. There you go. When we do this, you can see that not only has it made it pretty, it's also the banding makes it a lot easier to read. If you've got 30 students in a class, and it's a lot easier to be able to read across the line. Oh, they did this much, they did that much, whatever. These little filter buttons. See, there's a little drop down. So if you click on that drop down, you're able to filter and sort this stuff. I can filter, I'll go by this one. How about that? Smallest to largest. Or perhaps I don't want to see Adidas at all. Right? Click on that. I took out Adidas. I sorted it by March, column March, from the lowest number to the highest number, and I took out Adidas. So I can apply multiple filters at the same time. And it doesn't actually delete the data, it just makes it not visible. So you can see, like, this is going 7, 9, 10, skipping 8, right? I can remove filters on it. Makes it a lot easier. Now, these tables have special functions also. One of the things that they can do is if you click on a table, you get that table design tools. There's a tab, table tools, up there, design table tools up there, totals row, total row, and you can see it put a total row on there. I might have to do this. Design total row, there we go. Just so I can see it for a second. Adds a total row. Right. I didn't type that out. It put it on itself. And that totals row allows me to do quick calculations. Super, super useful. And I'm able to, in that spot, do things like this. I click the drop down arrow and it will allow me to get instant average, the instant count of things above it, the count of numbers specifically above it. Sum, min, max, standard deviation, variance, and put in more functions. I'm going to add in a totals column here. I'm going to add another column onto the table that already exists, and it'll put itself in automatically just by me starting to type it in here. It'll add it in. Do the same thing over here. Write the word total. I could have put another month in there too, but I'm going to put in total. Total. When I press enter, it adds it. Same thing over here. Total. Adds it in. So Microsoft Excel makes an assumption that if you are adding in additional columns, that it wants to add those to the table. But underneath, it won't add those. It'll leave them out. We'll do that in a second. So I've got a totals column here. I want it to do some math. I want the total. How many of the New Balance shoes did I sell over the 4-month period, the first, quarter of the year, third of the year? So I want to know what that is, but I don't want to type it in. I want it to do it itself. It's supposed to do it itself. Excel does the math. Don't do the math. Let Excel do the math. So on the Home tab, I have a quick find button for the common use functions. It's that sigma there, which means sum. Over here on this one, I can also go to the formulas tab. It's there as well. The formulas tab here. And quick functions, the ones that are used the most often, they really, really are. I mean, seriously are. Sum, average, count the number of numbers above me, or in my range. Maximum within the range, minimum within the range. We're going to use sum, average, max, and min. We seriously use those so often. So I'm going to use sum in this spot. Same thing over here, in this spot. I'm just going to click on sum. Sum, and look what it says. All right, it puts in here the equal sign the word sum, and then in parentheses, it's got some, like, stuff. What does that mean? Well, because it's in a table, table 1, it knows that each one of these columns is a function of the header row. So it's looking from January to April in that table, in this row. Same thing over here. Looking in table 1, that's this table, at the columns, January to April, of this row. And you can see that it's got that bounding box that blinks going around a selection. That's the range of cells that it's looking at. I'm going to press enter. 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 And because these are in a table, it automatically puts that formula in each one of these cells so that it looks next to itself, takes the numbers,